Hello, I'm Tony and today I'm going to be talking about a new Swarm Survivor that's in early access. A game called Nordic Ashes. No free game review here, but it's pretty close. It only cost me 4 English Earth pounds. So after I saw it on the Never Nathaniel YouTube channel, I thought, yeah, I'll get that. Why not? Well, straight off the bat, I want to say that was a good choice. This game's great. It's in a similar vein to king of the genre, Vampire Survivors, though this one doesn't have any vampires, although nor does Vampire Survivors. Anyway, this one's different. It's themed around Norse mythology, with the appropriately epic music and very appealing graphics. There are a couple of important differences that set it apart from a lot of the others that I've played in the genre. So let's get into why I think this is worth your time and money. Nordic Ashes gives us 5 characters to choose from, with another one locked behind what is a pretty tricky achievement to get actually, and another mysterious one that I think is not available yet. You know, early access. There's 5 maps to play on, each with 3 difficulty levels, and I think another 4 planned before release. They're just locked at the moment. Each one is a completely different environment, different mobs and mob mechanics to deal with, and actually some environmental stuff to deal with. Now, a big difference for this game is that each character comes with their own skill tree and the option to choose a starting weapon from that tree. This is a bit different from the standard Swarm Survivor, where weapons are not generally tied to a character in that way. You typically have one or possibly no starting weapon, and are then offered random ones as you level up. Not so here, because we're dealing with a skill tree, you don't get a weapon for each level up. Instead you get level up points that can be spent in the tree. You get mutually exclusive options where you have to choose one route, and these choices really form the framework of a build. It feels a little bit RPG, not massively, there's not that much to it, but it does take away a kind of randomness that is generally typical of these games. Fortunately, you're not limited to just what's in that skill tree. As you play through the game, you're probably going to pick up weapons either from the map or in the shop, and they level up like any of the weapons in the skill tree itself. In that way you can gain access to pretty much all unlocked weapons in the game. You've also got relics, which are kind of the accessory type thing. They can give you simple stat buffs, or they can give you mechanics that change the way your skills interact with each other, and that can be really powerful. An added element is that when you select a weapon node to level up, you actually get to see what the next level up is going to give you, and at the same time you get the option to re-roll if you don't like what you see. And there's meta progression options to give you more re-rolls or higher chance of extra or more powerful upgrades. Sometimes there's a skill that you really need something specific, like more projectiles, and it's just not going to work without it, but those are few and far between. It's there though if you really want to min-max your build on a run. Nice to have the option. Talking of which, there's even more build options. You can ascend certain weapons, which does make them significantly more powerful, but there's a limiting factor. You need crystals, and you don't get many of them. When you start out you're only getting 2. After a few runs you got 3 available, and very late game, if you buy a specific relic, you can actually get an extra one, making it 4. You've got to choose which weapons to ascend and also which ascension you're going to choose. You get 2 choices for ascensions for all the weapons that are in someone's skill tree, and only one if it's a weapon that's been granted as part of an achievement. This all worked really well for me up until a point. I mean, I've played for 40 hours now, which is a pretty long time, and I find myself now thinking that I've kind of found the best build for each character, and I kind of just go down the same path. But that process of figuring things out adapting things to 1, the playstyle, and 2, the environment you're in is fun. As with all these games, you've got bosses, which are initially pretty challenging until you figure out a way to like really power yourself up. Once you've killed a boss, you can go for a bit of shopping, where there is some meta progression. You actually have to make the shopkeeper happy by spending money. What else would you do? And once you have made them as happy as a shopkeeper can be, you'll get a discount on one particular item, and high quality stuff will appear in the shop. I often re-rolled a bunch of times to get the right relic or the right stat boost to round out my build. There's a lot of synergies between weapons, relics and your stats, the typical ones you get in Swarm Survivors, that can make the difference between like dominating a run and just having to run during a run. I mentioned the meta progression earlier. This is pretty standard but really large. One thing the developers put in that I think is unique to Nordic Ashes is a daily mission. It's almost like the developers watched people play Vampire Survivors and games like that where they made up their own challenges. And they kind of thought, oh, you like speedruns, you like challenges, oh don't worry about it, we'll do that for you. This is a fun idea and it works really well. It's early access, so you're going to have to expect options missing from the game. And it's definitely not optimised as yet. I've had a fair few random slowdowns that I'm pretty sure are game related rather than PC, since it generally happened when there's lots of things happening on the screen. This is a perennial problem for these type of games though. There is generally far fewer sprites on screen than in something like Vampire Survivors. Apart from those sort of blips, the game is stable and it runs pretty well on my low-end PC at good res and at high quality graphics, so it's not too demanding on your PC. I would like to point out any choppiness that you can see in the footage is more than likely because I was recording on the same PC at the same time, which is obviously going to put a bit more of a strain on the game. Playing the game by itself, it felt really smooth, it felt good. The character movement is really responsive actually. Good enough to let you like thread any number of needles between mobs. And pulling that off in a really tricky situation, it was really good. Until I unlocked most of the meta progression that I've got at the moment, I never felt overpowered playing this game. In fact, I always felt like I was just a little bit underpowered against the mobs, which is pretty much what you want it to be. If you like Swarm Survivors, this is a great addition to the genre. There's more unique stuff to it than most Swarm Survivors, and it's also one of the better looking and sounding ones. The graphics are really beautifully drawn, really evocative of all of the Norse mythology. Most importantly, it was really fun and difficult to stop playing. I recommend for fans of the genre, so that's all from me for this one. Thanks for watching, I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.